Taglines, they're everywhere. Just look at a billboard. Their only purpose is to contribute to the economy. So you know what? I've had enough. I'm gonna start contributing in approximately 4 seconds. God, popcorn, finally something to rival the 4th of July. Bowls, stop putting your food on the table. My computer, it's not good. See, I don't want to just sell the stupid fake thing, I want to buy the stupid fake thing. It makes sense why taglines are in our face around 50% of the time. It makes us want something we don't have, and one thing I don't have is video games. Have you ever seen my collection? Embodiment of planes for the 3DS plus various games. What could save these games is good marketing, and taglines are a big part of gaming for the longest time due to that specific marketing. Communism's doing it, so Kirby's a natural. I've decided that from now on, my goal is simple. I'm gonna look at various console taglines over these years, a couple individual games, and base my opinions on the to be patented more than 2 less than 4 double take scales. The more time I've gotta check my back, the closer it inches to one of these. Might as well start with some prehistory, or better yet, the 1970s, the Magnavox Odyssey. Pretty good, except for the fact that there really isn't any sort of fancy marketing for it, and I don't think a Wicked Recorder solo counts. I was negative 30 or so back then, and this really grinds my gears. I've given it half a take, only because it's instantly understandable how bad it is. Guess we can skip ahead to something a bit more interesting. Well, I said a bit more, but I don't think that's enough. Anyway, Atari marketing had something else besides a script and maybe a narrator. I think one of the most iconic taglines was, "Have you played Atari today?" And even then, taglines weren't as present as they are today. I'll give this one 2 takes, as while it's pretty straightforward, I have been recently diagnosed with not owning a 2600, so prepare for some hefty I haven't. The 3rd generation is upon us, and there are some new marketing buzzwords. The Nintendo Entertainment System is probably one of the few that had the power to save the video game industry after 1983 happened, and as such, I find Now You're Playing with Power to be a 1.5 take. While still somewhat primitive in design, it's still way better than the ultimate video game system lines being used by the competition, and even bit by the NES itself. The Master System, well, it had existence going for it. The tagline of the day here is, "The challenge will always be there," and I guess that's fair. I'll give it 1.5 because the real challenge is finding stuff to talk about with this thing. The 16-bit era has arrived with a whole new slew of consoles and games. The Sega Genesis had this marketing campaign where they refused to give Nintendo a break or even a reason. Genesis does what Nintendo is pretty much all you need to know. Giving it 1 take because Sega is pretty good at dropping out of the console market. As for the Super NES, Nintendo decided to start the now popular tradition of just making the same thing but with only one thing slightly different. If Nintendo made paper, in a good 20 years they'll sell it again but with holes pre-punched. Now You're Playing with Power. Superpower was the plan, and I guess it's fine enough. Have a 2.5 take. One of the more important game-specific taglines around this era was for Super Mario World, where the narrator says a bit more 16 times to correspond to the 16-bit power. Not too sure about this one, but here's 1 take just for being a good way to count around 1.5 of pennies. Around this time, we have a bit of transitional era between the 16-bit consoles and the more powerful 32-bit and 64-bit consoles. A few intermediate consoles popped around this time, being very promising and very unique. One of those statements is a lie, and it's not unique. The Virtual Boy was probably one of the more recognizable consoles of this era, but I'll chalk it up to being more similar than a semi-truck than a video game player. Well, that's gonna be a pretty tough game to spot the difference. Taglines? Well, we have something about 3D, but other than that, not much. So I guess it's technically a 0 takes because there isn't anything to comprehend. 3DO? Sure. Panasonic made the 3DO, and apparently this is as real as it gets. This is the peak of video gaming right here. The tagline is just the real 3DO. Yeah, as real as not having one would suggest, so have 3 takes. Can't wait to play Doom at 5 frames per second. Kicking off the 5th generation of consoles, we've got the first PlayStation and a bunch of commercials telling us not to underestimate it. And with a form like that, I've got no choice but to hand over a take and a half. Around this time, we see a bit of the standardization of slapping some text at the end of a skit instead of incorporating it throughout, and this was evident with other campaigns as well. You know, social anxiety has been a pretty big problem these past few years, and I've always wondered why. Well, after reading this, I think all my questions are answered. Get In or Get Out was a Nintendo 64 campaign, similar to how Sony slapped the tagline to the end of their commercials, this time focusing on the social life of today's youth. And by today, I mean the late 1990s. 2 takes for starting the trend of trying hard to be alone for no apparent reason. Jumping back a bit, the PC gaming business was booming, arguably with the release of Doom. Now everyone knows Doom's slogan as, but a Doom 2 advertisement would like to challenge. It will consume you was on the menu, and I'm giving it a single soul take due to being the simple fact that yes, perfect hatred will in fact eat you alive. Preferred this tagline to, but the change was probably for the better. The 6th gen brought in quite the famed newcomer and placed a straw that killed Sega's console market. The original Xbox told us to play more, and that was a fair tagline, but that was done through telling us that we were under a pretty strict time limit. Have 2 takes for being confusing but forcing us to buy it anyways. The GameCube ads didn't feel like talking. Yeah, sure, there was a life is a game slapped at the end of it, which I wish was true, but it's not, so you'll get 3 takes from me. Otherwise, the marketing seemed like it was just about showing how boxes are fun. The PS2 was having the time of its life after selling over 150 million units. So why did they advertise the PS9? I don't know. It's like advertising the 5th sequel of Wood when the first one hasn't even entered development. They slapped an ultimate just got better at the end, and looking back at the last generation, you get 1 take for being pretty accurate. The Wii advertising campaign is the sole reason I'll take my chances in opening the door for some guys in suits. There's only a 50% chance it's a tax audit. Hey, yo! Hey up! What are you talking about? I thought you were here to play Bass Pro Shops to Hunt! We would like to play is a pretty decent tagline, all things considered. It's catchy, it's quick, it's short, straight to the point, sells the idea of a machine for the whole family, and it's the wrong use of the word we. These suited guys aren't playing a game at all. 3 takes. You know, Mario Kart Wii taught me about running red lights and not to stop for any pedestrians whatsoever, but I never managed to buy a Wii wheel. I was a traditional classic Pro controller kind of guy. Probably a good thing, as we have a lot of get behind the wheel going on, talking about how easy it is to drive. Wait, where's the A button again? The PS3 had some weird stuff going on. Play Beyond was the sling of the week, and while the PS3 could do some pretty impressive stuff, the only thing that's going beyond its reality after viewing a baby in a white room accompanied by some Quake ambience. 3.5. The Xbox 360 was better? This ad is alright, focusing on the online capabilities of the system, followed by a hearty, the next generation is now, but missing the, at least until the next one. It's alright for what it's worth, have 2 takes. I guess it's high time to talk about the Wii U now. Aside from that radical music, the Wii U had this thing only known as, how will you play next? 5 takes, not necessarily because it's a bad slogan, it's just terrible. It's pretty hard to jump ahead when you still haven't figured out how to tie your shoe. The Xbox One sure wants you to though. They're trying to leap ahead in technology, I guess. Not a terrible idea, but you'll get a 2.5 from the mere fact that it's telling me to jump ahead, and my response is, where? The PS4 adopted the tagline only known as greatness aways, and it seems to be a pretty consistent one. It's pretty sharp and not bad, all things considered. Have a 1.5 for not being too half bad. Finally, we arrive at the last batch of taglines to consider. Exploration, everybody likes getting lost from time to time, and the PS5 promised something kinda close, but it's no substitute for the woods. Not even close. Yeah, but it'll do. Play has no limits is a pretty solid 1 take, because as far as I checked, it really doesn't. The Xbox Series X has the most generic title I could have ever thought for a video game console made by these guys. but they had the Xbox explode, followed by a statement that is power your dreams. Dismantlement is something that keeps me up at night, so good job. Have to anyways. Lastly, the Switch didn't really have one all things checked out. At least not any that really stuck out to me. There's probably some of the usual new thingy buy it shtick going on, but I'll give it a 4 instead of higher for making me look, and honestly the versatility of the system almost makes it work.
And that concludes our presentation of Taglines for today. A fairly cool feature that can show effort that's put in the video games to anything but the game themselves. However, I still have a few questions, such as what kind of taglines are we going to see next? Will they ever die? And why is my computer so bad? Well, either way, I should probably check on that patent I've been working on. Oh, come on!